The Bellagio fountains still dance. Every 15 minutes, water shoots into the desert sky, choreographed to Sinatra, to Bocelli, to the songs that make tourists stop on the sidewalk and pull out their phones. The fountains are beautiful. The fountains are iconic. The fountains are the greatest magic trick in Las Vegas. Because while you're watching the water, you're not noticing what's happening inside. Behind the fountains, past the gleaming lobby, up the elevators and down the hallways, inside the rooms that cost $500 a night, that's where the illusion cracks. That's where luxury Vegas is failing. The Bellagio, Aria, Caesar's Palace are charging more than ever while delivering less than ever. The gap between what these properties cost and what they actually provide has never been wider. The gap between reputation and reality has never been more devastating. Luxury Vegas is collapsing, not with a bang, with a slow, profitable decay that tourists are only beginning to notice. If you're new here, I expose what's happening behind the famous facades. The decline nobody wants to talk about, the ownership structures that make quality decay inevitable, the reasons your expensive Vegas trip left you feeling ripped off. Hit turn on notifications. Because understanding the luxury illusion is the only way to understand why Vegas doesn't feel worth it anymore. Let me show you what's really happening inside these properties. The ones charging $400, $500, $600 a night, the ones with the famous names and the iconic addresses, what that money actually buys you now versus what it bought you 10 years ago, versus what it should buy you at these prices. The gap will make you angry because you've probably felt it, you just couldn't name it. The Bellagio opened in 1998. Steve Wynn's masterpiece. $3 billion at the time, the most expensive hotel ever built, a property designed to prove that Las Vegas could compete with the finest resorts in the world, and it delivered. Italian elegance imported to the desert, the Chihuly ceiling in the lobby, 2,000 hand-blown glass flowers in every color imaginable, a sculpture worth millions suspended above your head as you walked in. The conservatory that changed with the seasons. Thousands of real flowers replaced every few weeks. Spring gardens, summer tropicals, fall harvest, winter wonderland. A living art installation that made guests return just to see what was new. And the fountains. The 8-acre lake and the 1,000 water cannons and the show that became the symbol of Las Vegas itself. For 25 years, the Bellagio was the gold standard. The name that meant luxury. The property that justified premium prices because it delivered premium experiences. When you told someone I stayed at the Bellagio, they understood. You hadn't just visited Vegas, you'd experienced the best it had to offer. The rooms were immaculate, the service was impeccable, the attention to detail bordered on obsessive. Everything from the thread count on the sheets to the weight of the hangers in the closet was considered. That reputation still exists, in the marketing, in the memories, in the prices they charge. It comes from a decade of feet and luggage and housekeepers who don't have time to deep clean anymore. The furniture is dated, that curved chair that felt modern in 2010, the desk that seemed sleek 15 years ago. Now they just feel old, not vintage, not classic, old. The bathroom has good bones, marble surfaces, decent fixtures. But look closer, the grout is graying, the caulk is yellowing. The luxury finishes are showing their age in ways that $500 a night shouldn't allow. The technology is a generation behind. USB ports that don't fast charge. A TV interface that feels like 2015. Curtains that might be automated or might require a call to maintenance depending on whether the motor still works. And the service, the white glove treatment that used to define Bellagio. The front desk agent is pleasant but rushed. 3 people covering a job that used to require 6. No time for small talk, no time to make you feel special, just efficient processing to keep the line moving. The housekeeping is thinner. Turn down service, request it, and maybe. The extra towels take an hour. The attention to detail that made everything feel perfect, gone. Cut to save labor costs. The pool is packed, not with guests, enjoying an exclusive experience with 1,000 strangers who bought day passes. The luxury pool is now a revenue center. Your $500 buys you a spot in the crowd, not an escape from it. Compare what you got to what you paid. $500 a night for a room that feels like 2012, for service that feels understaffed, for a pool you share with everyone who paid the entry fee. $500. You could stay at a Four Seasons in most cities for that. A Ritz-Carlton, a Park Hyatt. Properties that actually deliver what luxury promises. But at the Bellagio, you're paying for the fountains, for the name, for the memory of what this place used to be. Not for the actual experience. The experience doesn't justify the price anymore. That's the illusion. The fountains still dance. The lobby still gleams. The name still carries weight. But behind the show, the reality has decayed. The rooms are tired. The service is thin. The experience is a shadow of what it was. You're paying for what Bellagio was, and receiving what Bellagio has become. That gap between the price and the product is the luxury illusion, and it's not just Bellagio. Here's what makes this a crisis instead of just a disappointment. The Bellagio isn't a mismanaged outlier. It's not a single property that lost its way. It's the flagship example of what's happening across all of luxury Vegas. The Venetian's same trajectory, winds starting to show it, Aria quietly declining, Caesar's Palace trading on a name, while the rooms tell a different story. Every legacy luxury property is trapped in the same spiral, charging more, delivering less, surviving on reputation while the reality decays underneath. And the reason they can't stop it, the ownership structures that make this decline inevitable, the competition squeezing them from above, the economics that prevent investment, that's the part nobody wants you to understand. That's the part that explains why luxury Vegas is failing. Not slowly, not eventually. Right now. In the rooms behind the fountains. In the service that used to be exceptional. In the gap between what you pay and what you get. The illusion is cracking, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The luxury decline isn't about bad management. Isn't about lazy employees, isn't about changing tastes or entitled tourists or the pandemic or any of the excuses you'll hear from corporate press releases. It's about ownership, about who actually controls these properties now, about what their incentives are, about what they're optimizing for. Once you understand the ownership trap, the decline isn't a mystery. It isn't bad luck. It's math, inevitable math. Here's what happened to the Bellagio. MGM built it. They built in a building they used to own outright. This is called a sale-leaseback, and it swept through Las Vegas like a plague. The Venetian sold to Apollo and VC. Caesar's Properties sold to VC. MGM Properties across the Strip sold to Blackstone and VC and other real estate investors. One by one, the iconic casinos separated ownership from operation. The buildings went to financial engineers. The operations stayed with casino companies, but now as tenants, not owners. Why did they do it? Cash. Immediate cash. Billions of dollars flowing into corporate treasuries. Money to pay down debt. Money to return to shareholders. Money to paper over problems. Short-term thinking. Long-term catastrophe. And here's why that ownership structure kills quality. When you own a building, you invest in it. It's your asset, your future. Every dollar you spend improving it increases what you own. The incentives align perfectly. But when you're renting a building, even a building you built, even a building you used to own, the incentives flip completely. Why would you invest in someone else's property? Think about how tenants behave versus owners. An owner replaces the roof before it leaks, renovates the bathrooms every decade, upgrades the HVAC before it fails, invests constantly because every improvement increases the value of their asset. A tenant does the minimum required by the lease, fixes what's broken, defers what can be deferred, patches instead of replaces, maintains instead of improves. Why would a tenant spend money improving a building that belongs to someone else? Every dollar spent on renovations improves the landlord's asset, not the tenant's bottom line. The incentives are backwards. The math doesn't work. Investment becomes irrational. MGM is now a tenant at the Bellagio. Every dollar they spend renovating those dated rooms improves Blackstone's asset. Blackstone owns the building. Blackstone benefits from the upgrades. MGM just pays the bills. So MGM doesn't spend, they defer. They maintain the illusion, keep the fountains dancing, keep the lobby gleaming, keep the conservatory blooming, the parts tourists see before they pay. But the rooms? The service infrastructure, the behind-the-scenes investments that separate true luxury from theater, those get cut, deferred, minimized, because the ownership structure makes real investment irrational. The Bellagio isn't declining because MGM doesn't know how to run a luxury hotel. It's declining because MGM no longer has the incentive to invest in one. The ownership trap explains why legacy luxury can't improve, can't invest, can't renovate their way back to what they were. But there's another force squeezing luxury Vegas, and this one is coming from above. The new builds. The properties that didn't exist 5 years ago. The ones that are making legacy luxury look old just by existing. Resorts World opened in 2021. Brand new, 3,500 rooms that had never been slept in. Modern everything. Fresh bathrooms, current furniture, technology that actually works. No decades of wear, no deferred maintenance, no tired carpets hidden under strategic lighting. Fontainebleau opened in 2023. Another 3,700 rooms, another property where everything is new, where the paint is fresh and the fixtures gleam and nothing has been touched by a million tourists before you. These properties don't have the Bellagio's history, don't have the fountains, don't have 25 years of reputation, but they have something more important to a tourist booking a room. They're new, and they're pricing aggressively. Resorts World at $350 a night, Fontainebleau running promotions at similar rates, new product at prices that compete directly with legacy luxury. A tourist looks at the options. $500 for Bellagio, famous name, dated rooms, reputation from the 90s. Or $350 for Resorts World, no history, but everything fresh, everything modern, everything actually new. That's not a hard choice for a lot of people. The new builds are stealing market share. Not by being better at hospitality, not by having more history, simply by being newer, by offering a product that matches what tourists expect when they pay luxury prices. Legacy luxury is caught in a vice. Squeezed from above by new builds offering fresher product at competitive prices. Squeezed from below by ownership structures that won't allow the investment needed to compete. The Bellagio can't outnew Resorts World. 27 years of operation can't match 0 years of wear. And the Bellagio can't outinvest Resorts World either, because the ownership structure makes major renovation irrational. So what can legacy luxury do? They can't renovate. The sale-leaseback structure means every dollar spent improves someone else's asset. They can't compete on newness. 20-year-old properties can't feel fresh no matter how good the housekeeping. They can't lower prices. The rent is fixed. The debt payments are fixed. The cost structure doesn't flex. All they can do is lean on reputation. Hope the name still carries enough weight. Hope tourists still believe the illusion. Hope the fountains distract people long enough that they don't notice the rooms. That's not a strategy, that's a prayer. Legacy luxury is trapped. Can't compete with new builds on product quality. The ownership structure won't allow the investment. Can't compete on price. The fixed costs are too high. Can't compete on newness? 27 years is 27 years. Surviving purely on brand recognition. On the memory of what these properties used to be. On tourists who booked the Bellagio because their parents told them it was the best. And here's the terrifying part. The tourists are starting to notice. The reviews are changing. Not worth the price. Dated rooms. Expected more. The repeat visitors are disappearing once they see the gap between reputation and reality. They don't come back. The illusion is cracking. More cracks every day. And when enough tourists realize they're paying $500 for a $300 experience, the pricing power collapses. And when pricing power collapses at properties that can't reduce their costs because the rent is fixed, because the debt is real, the death spiral begins. The cracks are already showing. Not in the fountains, not in the lobbies, not in the marketing materials, or the Instagram feeds, or the glossy websites. In the reviews. The real reviews. From real tourists who paid real money and discovered the gap between what they expected and what they received. The illusion is failing, and when the illusion fails, everything else follows. Read the reviews, not the curated testimonials, the actual feedback from the past 2 years. Dated rooms. Over and over, not worth the price. Again and again. Expected more for what we paid. The same complaint, different words. The reputation doesn't match the reality. Stayed here because of the name, won't make that mistake again. $500 for a room that felt like a mid-tier Marriott. The Bellagio's ratings are sliding. Not crashing the fountains still earn goodwill, still generate 5-star reviews from tourists who never left the lobby, but sliding steadily, year over year. The average creeping down as more people experience the rooms, the service, the reality behind the illusion. And then there are the comparisons, the reviews that don't just criticize Bellagio, they measure it against the new builds. Stayed at Resorts World for $200 less, room was way nicer. Why does anyone pay Bellagio prices? Fontainebleau felt like actual luxury. Bellagio felt like I was paying for the past. Did Bellagio and Resorts World back to back? Night and day difference. Resorts World wins easily. The comparisons are devastating. Legacy, luxury being measured against new builds and losing. Tourists who might have assumed Bellagio was worth the premium discovering in real time with their own eyes that it's not. But reviews are just the early warning system, the canary in the mine. What happens next is worse. What happens when tourists stop believing the illusion is math that luxury Vegas can't escape? The death spiral. And it's already beginning. Luxury properties have fixed costs that don't flex. The rent to Blackstone doesn't decrease because occupancy dropped 10%. Hundreds of millions of dollars owed every year, regardless of how many rooms you fill. The debt payments don't shrink because tourists are booking elsewhere. The interest is the interest. The principal is the principal. The staff minimums, the utility costs, the baseline operations fixed. Unchangeable. Owed whether the hotel is full or half empty. So when pricing power erodes, when they can't charge $500 anymore, when they have to discount to $350 to fill rooms, when promotions become permanent, the margins collapse. Less margin means less money for investment. Less investment means faster decline. Faster decline means worse reviews. Worse reviews mean more discounting to compete. The spiral accelerates, each quarter worse than the last. Each year, the gap between new builds and legacy properties growing wider. Until the luxury property is charging mid-tier prices for a product that used to command premiums. Until the name that meant something becomes a name that means overpriced and outdated. That's not luxury anymore. That's a legacy brand living off memories, and memories have an expiration date. So who survives? When the illusion shatters completely, when tourists stop paying premium prices for degraded experiences, which luxury properties actually make it through? The answer is brutal and shorter than you'd think. Wynn might survive. Steve Wynn built it to last. The original ownership invested in quality that compounds over time, and even now, it's been maintained better than most of its competitors. The rooms still feel current. The service still feels intentional. The gap between price and product is smaller. Cosmopolitan might survive. Younger property, different positioning. A brand that doesn't rely entirely on traditional luxury signals. It appeals to a crowd that values cool over classic, and cool is harder to age out of. The new builds might survive if they can manage their debt. Resorts World and Fontainebleau have the freshest product on the strip. No decades of deferred maintenance, no worn carpets or tired bathrooms. But they're carrying billions in construction debt that demands performance, fresh product, fragile finances. Everyone else is fighting for a shrinking pool. A shrinking pool of tourists willing to pay luxury prices for actual luxury experiences. Not legacy names, not fountain shows, not memories of what a property used to be. Actual luxury, actual quality, actual value for $500 a night. There aren't enough of those tourists to support every property that claims the tier. The market is overcrowded with luxury that isn't luxurious anymore. The Venetian, Aria, Caesar's Palace, the Bellagio itself, all fighting for the same customers, all trading on reputations that were earned years ago, all hoping the illusion holds long enough to survive. It won't. Not for all of them. What's coming is a hollowing out. The luxury tier won't disappear entirely. There will always be tourists willing to pay for the best, but the tier will shrink, consolidate, become what it claims to be instead of what it pretends to be. And for the properties that can't make the cut, the ones surviving on name alone, the future is brutal. Properties that maintain investment will hold their pricing. The wins, the new builds that manage their debt, maybe one or two legacy names that somehow find the capital to renovate. Properties that can't invest will slide. The Bellagio won't close. The fountains alone guarantee some premium. Some tourists will always pay for the name, the photo opportunity, the chance to say they stayed there. But it may become a mid-tier property charging mid-tier prices, trading on a luxury reputation it no longer deserves. A museum of what Vegas used to be instead of an example of what Vegas is. The Venetian, Aria, Caesar's Palace, same trajectory, slow decline, gradual price erosion, the word luxury in the marketing but not in the experience. Charging prices based on yesterday's reputation, delivering experiences that don't justify today's rates, surviving on memory because the reality can't compete. The tourists are noticing, the reviews are sliding, the comparisons to new builds are devastating. Luxury Vegas built an illusion, kept the visible parts perfect, the fountains, the lobbies, the photographs. Let the invisible parts decay, the rooms, the service, the actual experience. And illusions only work until people look too closely. They're looking now, and they don't like what they see. The Bellagio Illusion is failing, and Luxury Vegas is failing with it. Hit to watch the luxury collapse unfold. I'm tracking every property, every price adjustment, every review trend, every sign that the illusion is cracking wider. Drop a comment. Have you stayed at Bellagio recently? Did it match the reputation? Did the experience justify the price? Or did you feel the gap between what you paid and what you received? Because the properties are still charging like they're the best in Vegas, still marketing the fountains and the names and the history. But history doesn't justify $500 a night, neither do fountains. Experiences do, and the experiences aren't there anymore. The Bellagio Illusion is failing, Luxury Vegas is failing, and the tourists are finally starting to see behind the curtain. I'll see you in the next one.